Have you ever heard of the Prince of Persia? Why did an angel of God wrestle with him for 21 days and could not defeat him? How powerful is this satanic principality that Archangel Michael himself would come to help the angel of God? Very well, my dear listener, in this video we will carry out a very detailed Bible study of the Prince of Persia, and we will be answering all these questions. Let's start. In Daniel chapter 9, God showed the prophet a general summary of his plan for the full restoration of Israel. On this occasion, his prediction covers the period between the Old and New Testaments, with special reference to the Medo-Persian and Greek empires. But finally, Daniel also receives information about the events related to the time of the eschatological tribulation that Israel will experience when the Antichrist appears on the scene. All this information that was revealed to the prophet Daniel is very valuable to understand the times and events that happened and will happen around Israel. Now, in chapter 10 of Daniel, we see that a very powerful demon who is identified as the Prince of Persia opposed the heavenly messenger for 21 days, so that he could not reach Daniel and give him that valuable information regarding the kingdoms of Persia and Greece that we find in the next chapter. Evidently, Satan did not want this information to reach Daniel and the men. Let's read Daniel chapter 10, verse 10 onwards. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. 11 He said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Dear ones, when the prophet Daniel received the visit of this heavenly messenger, he was in Babylon. In verse 1 of Daniel chapter 10, we see that the prophet historically fixes the time of his vision. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar. Its message was true, and it concerned a great war. This places us in the year 536 BC. 2 years earlier, Cyrus had decreed that Jews who wished could return to Jerusalem, and more than 42,000 made their way back. We find this in Ezra chapter 2, verse 64. At this time, the exiles had already begun rebuilding the temple. Perhaps Daniel, due to his advanced age, was over 80 years old. He did not return with the other exiles, although it could also be that his duties in the government prevented him from doing so. Daniel chapter 10 begins by describing the conflict that the new revelation produced in Daniel. The word was true and the conflict great. As had happened before, the announced events distressed him and left him worried. As we will see, this great conflict can refer to the fact that Satan himself opposed the prophet receiving divine communication, or also to the serious events that the people of Israel would have to go through and that the prophecy foretold. Let's read the biblical story. Then he continued, Do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. 13 But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. 14 Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. In these verses, we see that Daniel had been heard on the first day of his prayer. This was because, as he had been told before, the prophet was a man greatly loved by God. But furthermore, he had prepared his heart to understand and to humble himself. This indicates the fervent desire that Daniel had to know the will of God and fulfill it. When this is fulfilled, there is no doubt that God will reveal himself to such a person. However, Daniel could wonder why the heavenly messenger had taken so long to answer his prayer. Let us remember that the prophet had been afflicted for 3 weeks. And although Daniel did not express this concern, the angel prepared to answer him. The divine messenger had gone out on the first day of the 3 weeks to answer his prayers. However, he had to fight for 21 days against the prince of the kingdom of Persia. We understand that this prince must have been a satanic adversary, an evil angel who was associated with the kingdom of Persia. The word prince, which comes from the Hebrew meaning czar, person, chief or head of any rank or class, waiter, captain, leader, commander, commissioner, general, governor, great, chief, master, mayor, officer, main, prince. All of these descriptions fit well with the idea of the New Testament that the angelic ranks are organized and have hierarchies. In Colossians chapter 1, verse 16, it says, For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. With these verses, we see that these angelic ranks seem to include both faithful angels and fallen angels. The prince that Daniel mentions is a diabolical power, an evil angel. In the New Testament, they are also called demons. This passage points out a ministry that angels have in human governments, just as the Apostle Paul mentions in Ephesians. Such ability to delay the response to Daniel gives us great evidence of the power of the prince of the kingdom of Persia. Somewhere in his flight from heaven, from his abode, the angel sent by God invaded the field of heavenly places populated by evil spirits. Michael came to free said angel from that opposition of the Prince of Persia. This prince was a spirit of great evil. Let's read Daniel chapter 10, verse 20. So he said, "Do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the Prince of Persia, and when I go, the Prince of Greece will come." 21. But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. As we analyze these verses, we see that an angel of evil operates in every nation. However, we also see that there are angels of God. And in this case, we see that the Archangel Michael is the prince who fights for the nation of Israel. Michael, one of the chief princes, his name means who is like Jehovah, and he is called the Archangel. In Revelation chapter 12, we also find him leading an angelic army against the dragon and his angels. He now appears here again to clear the way so that the heavenly messenger could reach Daniel and give him the information regarding the kingdoms of Persia and Greece that we find in the next chapter. My dear ones, we must note that, although the Prince of Persia managed to hinder the delivery of the message for 3 weeks, in the end they could not prevent it. This shows us that although Satan and his followers have power, it is limited power. We are also struck by the fact that, although God could have intervened to settle the matter immediately, yet he did not do so. It is curious to see how the conflict in the kingdom of men somehow affects the conflict between angelic beings. Satan himself and his armies became actively involved in this conflict in order to try to thwart God's plans. Here we have a little proof of the war that is waged in the heavenly realms between the angels of God and the demons. Therefore, it had been the forces of Satan that had caused the delay in answering Daniel's prayer. The truth is that we never thought that this could be the cause of the delay in our prayers being answered. And on the other hand, this also leads us to think that, although Daniel's prayer might seem insignificant, it had cosmic repercussions. In reality, prayer is always about engaging in a spiritual battle. This passage reveals to us that there is a world of evil that remains invisible to us, but that is in permanent conflict so that God's will is not carried out in the world of men. The Christian must discern that the power of prayer must not be seen only in one person's life, but also from a global perspective. The end times demand that God's saints engage in prayers for the world and its powers. When our prayers go beyond our personal needs and enter into a global scope, then we are entering the area where principalities and powers reside. We need men and women around the world dedicated to prayer in the field of spiritual warfare. I send a cordial greeting to all of you. God bless you greatly, and without further ado, I say goodbye now, and it will be with me until the next video.